Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the upper back and neck fix training. In this training, we're going to do a whiteboard session with you so you understand the nuances, the mechanics, the mechanism of the upper back and neck so that you are prepared to take on this training and get the most out of it. So what we're going to be going through is just a couple things. We're going to be going through some anatomy, some faults that you might find in the upper back and neck, what causes injuries, where do injuries come from, what are the most common. Ultimately, we're going to work on some keys, which obviously comes from the faults, and we're going to talk about some fails that people go through that have when they're rehabbing, fixing, working on these regions of their body. So let's dive into it. If you haven't already watched the fix training video, make sure you go back and watch that. That kind of talks through what is fix, the functional integrated exercise training system, why we do what we do, how we go through the process of fixing a region or an area of your body, and ultimately what you need to know before you obviously get into a very more specific thing like working on the upper back and neck. So let's dive into the anatomy. I got my buddy here, Barry Bones. This is my skeleton friend that I actually got in grad school. I'm actually like, he's been with me for a long time, me and him. Right? We've been traveling the world together, which has been awesome. So the first thing I want to make note of is that when I say upper back and neck, I really mean the thoracic spine, this section of here, this 12 regions, 12 segments, 12 vertebrae, and the neck itself. So when we're working on this, I'm really working on these areas. Now, obviously, the shoulder blade or the scapula and the shoulder itself are very related, but that's going to be a whole nother region. So don't worry about that today. We're going to be working specifically on the upper back and neck. Now, when I look at the upper back and neck, the first thing I want to make note of for you guys is that obviously we have an entire rib cage associated with the upper back. So all of our ribs are connected both posteriorly and then anteriorly on the sternum here, and they come together in the front. So we would think that there would be some kind of like a stability that we would want from the upper back. Well, what's interesting about that, and that's actually kind of a key and a fault, if you will, is that a lot of times people think about their upper back as a stable structure. We actually want this area of your body to be the most mobile part of your rotation of your spine so that your lumbar spine and your neck are stable. So even though they appear that they are more mobile here and here, we actually want them to be more stable. If you remember from the fixed training video, that's what I'm talking about. So when I'm working on fixing myself, I'm looking at the different regions I'm doing, that zipper effect, if you remember, the things I'm looking at is, okay, I want my lumbar spine, this segment, these vertebrae here to be more mobile, to be more stable. I want the upper back to be more mobile. And where we get that mobility is going to be from rotation. The key to rotation, obviously, is in your thoracic spine, and then ultimately stabilize that neck. So if I'm talking about, again, upper back and neck, I want my neck to be more stable. I want to stabilize that thing because this is not a very strong region for what I got on top of that, which is my dome, right? My skull. We all have this thing, and we all know that this is heavy. And so oftentimes I see people coming in with headaches, migraines, and they're like, man, I got this migraine all the time. And most migraines, 90% of migraines, are actually musculoskeletal related. They're not even neurologic, they're just musculoskeletal. They could be coming from a joint in their upper spine, on their upper neck that is rotated, and then all of a sudden it gets locked in, those muscles tighten up, and you're like, oh man, you get that headache that's been going on for days, and you have to lay down, and all of a sudden you lay down, and you wake back up, and you're like, oh, I feel better. Well, because the muscle relaxed, that's why that migraine goes away. And when we talk about migraine, we talk about like very intense headache. So let me put him down really quick, and then let's kind of go through the keys, the faults, etc. of exactly what we're looking at for the upper back and neck. So again, anatomy-wise, we're looking at through the thoracic spine and rib cage, and this is super important that you understand that obviously these are connected. So thoracic spine and rib cage all connected. We got to make sure that they're also mobile, and also ultimately is the C-spine. Now, the thoracic spine, this is a quick note too, that the joints in the thoracic spine, they actually are on what's called the frontal plane, whereas the joints of the lumbar spine are on the sagittal plane. So what that means, don't go too far into depth. Basically, what that means is that when I rotate those joints in my upper back are gonna be the ones that are gonna get all that rotation. That's what I wanna make sure of, all right? So, all right, when I'm looking at faults, here's the common faults of the upper back and neck. So common faults is that I've lost mobility in my upper back. So that is the common fault. I've also reduced, we'll call it posture or just general positioning of the entire region. And where I'm getting that from is like, we'll just sit at a desk for a long period of time. And when I'm here, what I'm doing is I'm locking in my rib cage. And what's underneath my ribs? Well, kind of some vital organs that we need to expand. We need to breathe. We need a heart to be able to get movement, right? Get that blood pumping. We want to be able to open up. And so if I'm here, what's happening is I'm actually locking everything down. I'm not getting the mobility that I need. I'm not able to rotate. And so now that's causing more issue in other regions, which is in this case going to be the upper neck or even the low back. But then what happens in the upper neck is that my chin starts to go forward, and now my neck starts to lock down. And if I try to stand up, well, it's like, do you ever like train a muscle for a long period of time and then that muscle starts to grow? Well, that's just the nature of adaptation, which is a good thing. We need the law of adaptation, which is a good thing. But when you understand that you're training yourself because you're sitting at a desk for an extended period of time, what you're doing is that you're actually training that muscle to be in the wrong position. And then you come into my office or some other chiropractor's office and you say, hey, I got these headaches, I got this neck pain, why do I have this? Like, because you've been sitting in like a really poor posture for like a long period of time. You've literally trained yourself to do that. So my hope is that through this process, through this program, you're gonna be able to get that extension that your body needs. And that's why I'm a big fan of this specific program, because it's one of the keystones to overall functioning of your body. And so the other fault that I see a lot of times with the C-spine, the neck, is that we actually have a lack of stability. And these are super related, so they kind of go back and forth. So if I have a lack of mobility in my upper back, so I would say this is the keystone, this is a primary fault, then I'm gonna have a lack of stability in my neck. So it's not gonna be super stable. So if I, for instance, if I wanna rotate, well, not only do I not even have the mobility, but I also don't have the stability to hold it, and now a joint moves, and now I go, and then it locks in, and then those muscles around that area start to tighten up, and that's when you get that headache, that's when you get those migraines, or you might even push on this upper trap right here. You might feel some pain going up into your head. It doesn't feel good. So just know that you gotta have the mobility here first. So again, keys, faults and keys are really related, because if you understand the faults and you understand the keys, we want to mobilize the T-spine or the thoracic spine. We want to improve our posture, and we actually do want to increase mobility of the neck, but where the mobility of the neck really comes from is actually from the upper back, from the thoracic spine. But then once we do that, now we want to increase stability. So we do want both mobility and stability of the neck, right? You want to be able to like look over your blind spot when you're driving, but you don't want to have that thing to be the only thing that moves. That's when you're going to pop a disc. So one of the big faults, and I didn't even really mention this, is that people can get disc pain. And when you have pain going down your arm, right? Like this, it almost feels like a sciatica, but when your upper body, it's radiating pain, right? And maybe in like your fingers here, your fingers in the front, it's like you got some disc pain, right? So you got some neurologic problems going on because you're experiencing a disc herniation in your neck. And so if there's a lack of mobility in your thoracic spine, oftentimes you have to over-mobilize in the what's called the cervical spine or the neck, and now you're gonna get a disc issue because there's too much mobility. So we do want mobility here. We actually still want mobility in our neck. Not that we want to like be stable and like walk around like this, and I've seen people like that. We want to be able to mobilize and stabilize at the same time. So keep that in mind. And then the keys here, or the fails that I see most often with people, this is so common, is that they think that rotation, the fail is that they think rotation is coming from the lumbar spine. It's not coming from the lumbar spine, it's coming from the thoracic spine. So we want to rotate that thoracic spine. So that super common fail, I should say, they've been rotating at the lumbar spine. We don't want that. We want to rotate at the thoracic spine. That's where we want. And the thoracic spine is, again, the upper back. When I say upper back, I mean rib cage, thoracic spine, that T-spine segments, those 12 segments. And then the other thing that people do, nobody really talks about the neck. Nobody really stabilizes the neck. Nobody really actually gets in there and re-educates the muscles in the upper neck. And so that's actually what we want to do here. So I want to work on neck when I'm working on overall function of upper back and neck. So you actually want to stabilize the neck, meaning there's going to be, we're going to go through the exercises in the actual program, but I'll give you a quick example. One of the things that you can do, put the tongue to the roof of your mouth, and then you're going to actually stabilize. You're going to start to clench up the deep neck flexors that help provide stability, support to the vertebrae in your neck, so that when you do rotate, that those are stable, so then you can actually get the rotation you need. Now, obviously, you want to be able to rotate through your whole upper back first, but that is a huge component, is the stability of your neck as well. So again, anatomy is upper back, chest, rib cage is my cervical spine, part of that as well. That's part of the anatomy. Common faults, I need the mobility. I want the mobility of that upper back, of the thoracic spine, of the rib cage. So we're gonna be doing a lot of rotation movements. We're gonna be doing a lot of core work, make sure that everything is both stable and mobile. Keys here, again, mobility, mobility, mobility in the upper back, rotation, stability in the neck. I want to increase that posture. That's super huge. And then ultimately, the fails that people have, they don't rotate properly. They think they're going to get rotation from their lumbar spine. You're not. So don't keep trying to rotate in your desk chair. I know you do. You do it. Everybody does. Everybody wakes up in the morning and then they just pop, and they feel a pop in their low back, and they're like, oh, I feel so good. Well, if you actually mobilize your thoracic spine, you won't feel like you have to pop your low back all the time, because your low back will actually have a stable position. That's what we want. And so again, then after you do that, then you work on the stability, mobility of your neck. All right, guys. So as you're going through the program, if you're watching this from the YouTubes of the world, and you're not part of the program, then dive in the link below. You'll see the actual program link, so just jump into the program. If you are part of the program, then go into phase 1. If you have pain right now, obviously stop, go to phase 0, just work on the pain first, get out of pain, and then go into phase 1, and then you'll be on your way to fixing your upper back and neck. Guys, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this material, please give us a thumbs up, share. I love you guys. Stay unbreakable out there, and we'll see you in the next training.